activated into AMPK, which then triggers another signaling molecule, PGC1 alpha, that is your body's master regulator for mitochondrial biogenesis. So you release and activate a signaling molecule that sends a very strong signal to your body that it has to develop more and larger mitochondria.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State Podcast. I am your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I really give you a very special biohack for you to achieve more longevity, performance, and to increase your cardiovascular health with this very special technique that actually drives the efficiency of your mitochondria for you to become your best self. Now, before we get into the podcast, let me welcome all the newcomers to the podcast. This is a place where I bring in thought leaders, experts, and renowned teachers of longevity, epigenetics, biohacking, relationships, all of this because it leads us to become the best versions of ourselves. Once we can master these areas of our life, we can really, truly show up in a space where we are feeling alive. And that feeling of aliveness is who we are. That feeling of aliveness is also what I call the thrive state, which is also the feeling or the energetic that actually causes our genes to be activated towards longevity and peak performance. So if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to the podcast, engage with it in the comments below, and share this information with your friends and family members. This is really going to allow the message to get to more and more people. And if you are returning to the podcast, thank you. Your listenership, your attention, your devotion to give to yourself and the people around you by listening and sharing this information is really allowing more people to have access to health, to life, to love. So thank you. And as a free gift, if you haven't already, you can download free longevity and peak performance resources by going to thrivestatestarter.com or get my free toolkit where I give you prompts to evaluate where you are in life, which will really help you step into the best version of yourself. You can get that at mythrivestate.com/toolkit. On to today's podcast. Now, in the world of biohacking, we always want to know not only how to become our best selves, but are there ways of accelerating it? What is the minimal energy expenditure, whether it be time, whether it be money, whether it be resources, whether it be effort to give you the maximal result? And on today's podcast, we discuss some of these technologies. Now, you might have heard of high-intensity interval training to really boost your mitochondrial health. And really, the crux of our performance and longevity and health has to deal with how healthy our mitochondria are. You might already know that the mitochondria are the power plants of our cells. They provide us with cellular energy, which basically drives every cellular process to give us peak performance, for us to become our best self. So in order for us to live a long time, in order for us to maintain our performance, we need to maintain our mitochondrial health. Now, high-intensity interval training is one of those things that actually boost mitochondrial health. But let's face it, it can be really hard, particularly when you're going 30 to 45 minutes. It could really be a strain on your body, and you'll need a lot of time to recover with it. Now, on this episode, I want to introduce you to the biohack of HIIT, which is REHIT, or REHIT, which is Reduced Exertion High Intensity Training. And what it does is it allows you to exert maximally for a very short period of time for you to get the optimal benefits. You activate your mitochondria to be more efficient in producing ATP. You also increase mitochondrial biogenesis, which means making more mitochondria. Now, in the long run, doing this actually increases your VO2 max, which is how efficient your body is in extracting oxygen from the air. And that's a marker for longevity. With less than 10 minutes a day, you could decrease your blood pressure. You could increase your insulin sensitivity. You can increase your VO2 max. You could improve your performance, and you will live longer. This is a really cool podcast. I can't wait for you to meet our next guest. After graduating in mechanical engineering from Germany's leading tech university, he worked in Europe's top automobile manufacturers. From there, he moved to London, where he pioneered the use of AI for operational efficiency within UK health services. Now, after watching a BBC documentary on reduced exertion, high-intensity interval training, he realized its potential in a very effective cardio workout. So the problem, REHIT didn't exist anywhere out in the commercial space. They found a solution, and the solution actually became the Caro Bike. This is a revolutionary technology that uses AI to actually activate REHIT in our body, allowing us to have probably the most efficient workout known to man today. We'll go over the science today, but you'll discover that the Caro Bike has allowed people to increase their cardiovascular health by 50%. He himself actually lost 10 kilograms and reduced his blood pressure. So in today's podcast, you'll find out exactly what exactly is REHIT and the technology you can use to apply REHIT in your life to improve your performance and your longevity. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this beautiful conversation with myself and the CEO of Caro Bike, Ulrich Dempfle. Ulrich Dempfle, welcome to the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am super excited for this conversation because, you are the CEO of the Caro Bike, and I've got it delivered and I've used it several times. Very, very short workouts. Now, normally my audience, we jump into the 5 to Thrive, which is a game show style thing where you get to win a dinner on me. But before we do that, I am so excited this time. I just want you to just let the audience know the Caro Bike is really changing the way I'm thinking about fitness, because you can do workouts in as short as 5 minutes. How is that possible?
So we trade intensity for time. So workouts are incredibly short, 5 minutes total, and you really only work hard for 2 20-second sprints, 2 20-second sprints. But there you go all out, you push yourself to your limits. It's doable because it's so short, and through pushing to your limits, you just trigger a different adaptation pathway. You give a different level of stimulus to your body and send a really, really powerful signal that your body has to get fitter and stronger.
That's an amazing thing. And if you want to listen to more of the science, you're going to find out how we could just take these, 2 20-second sprints to really change your life. Now, when people really think about this, they are really shortening their workouts by a very small fraction. How do you think that's going to change how people perceive working out when people feel like, oh man, I'm putting in hours and hours at the gym? Are you saying we can get better results doing exercises such as this to achieve better performance and longevity in the future?
Mm-hmm. So what I'm absolutely certain about is that this is the most efficient way to improve your cardiorespiratory fitness, to improve your VO2 max, and with that, your longevity. So there's lots of things you can do that are effective at improving VO2 max, your ability to metabolize, to burn oxygen. But this is really the most efficient thing. And we're confident about that. So in terms of what you get for the effort and the time you invest, there's really nothing that comes close to this. And so if you're tight in time or you have other priorities, this is really something that can shift the needle dramatically on your cardio fitness and thereby help you lead a longer, happier, healthier life.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to do in terms of just like pointing out the results as I was diving into some of the results people can expect to get in terms of the things that they're treating, what I've seen is a reduction in blood pressure, a reduction in insulin resistance if people have any, and really changes in mitochondrial health that is, improving the VO2 max and allowing people to live healthier. What are the other type of things that I might not have thought of that people might be getting benefits from?
Yeah. So yeah, entirely right. The headline benefits is improved cardiorespiratory fitness, VO2 max, and improved metabolic health. So that's like all the things you said about insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, and so on. And you can dramatically lower your risk of developing type 2 diabetes or other metabolic diseases. But the list of benefits is really very long. And that in some ways just reflects that exercise is so potent and so powerful. So it goes from, you get like a good amount of calorie burn for weight management, lower body strength benefits. It's good for brain health, mental health, sleep. So there's really a very long list of benefits that you can get from putting in a very small amount of time. You don't even have to do that every day. So 5 minutes every other day, 3 times a week is enough to get those benefits. So it's really quite amazing.
All right. So if you want to just learn how you can basically take 15, 20 minutes out of your week to live longer, perform better, you're going to want to listen to the rest of this podcast. Now, as we dive in now, we've got a segment of the show where Ulrich gets to have an opportunity to win a very healthy meal on me the next time we meet. And that's by playing the 5 to Thrive. 5 questions coming out of thin air to ask Ulrich here. And my question to you is, are you prepared? 1,000 points each question to play the 5 to Thrive.
Yes, very nervous, but yes, shoot.
Here we go. Question number 1 is, what did you want to be? What were you dreaming up as a kid when you grew up?
Yeah, that's easy. So I wanted to build and design and build airplanes. That was really my dream. And then through a long detour, I ended up making bikes. But this is, I'm very happy and actually feel that for all the reasons that I wanted to build airplanes, I'm now very fulfilled about making bikes.
Oh, amazing. Question number 2 is, what book, phrase, or quote entered your life and then completely changed the way you saw life from that point on?
So several. I think one of my personal favorites is The Better Angels of Our Nature, Steven Pinker. I think I've read that in 2012 or so. And I find it puts everything so nicely in perspective and helps you stay an optimist when you hear all the bad news. And I think being grateful and being an optimist and having a positive outlook, that's another really important thing for leading a happy and healthy life. So
thank you for sharing that. My daughter came out and there was a certain scare when she was born. And really at that moment was probably one of the first moments that I truly, truly understood the gift of life. So thank you for sharing that. 2,000 points thus far. Question number 3 is, you are now in a rock concert. I just sung a song. The audience is going wild, but you're going to follow me and I'm going to introduce you on stage. What song are you singing for the audience, my friend?
Okay. At a rock concert, Take Me to the Jungle.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That must have been my first concert in 1990 or so. Use the Illusion World Tour. So yeah, that must be it.
Take me to, okay, very good. I like that. 3,000 points. Question number 4 is, how would you like to be remembered?
What we want to achieve is really shift the needle on the inactivity epidemic. So if you look at how few people actually exercise enough and how important it is to exercise, but you can only despair, really. And we want to help people. We want to make it as easy and as simple as possible to develop a healthy exercising workout habit that you can fit into your life every day and therefore shift the needle on that exercise epidemic, because the couch is the biggest killer. It really is. And we have to change that.
Amazing. Thank you for doing the important work you do. And the final question is, what have you been most proud of? Or what are you most proud of?
I've got 3 wonderful sons. Must be them.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. I'm a girl dad on my side. Wanted sons, but realized that the universe, wants me to learn through having some daughters. So that's beautiful. Hey, 5,000 points. You won the 5 to Thrive, which means a next conference where I have the privilege to meet you in person. The meal is on me. And now let's dive into the meat of the conference. Well, first of all, congratulations. Music is coming on. We're celebrating your win. Congratulations. But in all seriousness, let's dive into the meat of the conversation, which is, the science around REHIT technology and kind of how this technology has come into form, and how actually the Carol bike is probably very unique in its position, being one of the pioneering technologies that actually leverage this power of REHIT. So prior to you, I heard you basically started everything because you saw some science documentary on the BBC. Now, prior to you watching that show, what was going on in your life? What were you doing at that time?
Yeah, sure. So I am a mechanical engineer, but most of my professional life I actually spent in healthcare. So working with hospitals, working with payers to broadly make patient care better, more effective. And we did fairly advanced stuff there. So we used machine learning and AI modeling to predict which interventions were most beneficial for which patients and try to intervene early. We set up chronic disease management programs for people with heart conditions, metabolic diseases, and so on. And all this advanced stuff is all nice and good, but the truth is just that the most impactful intervention for most of those patients, most of those people, is just exercise, because it is so profound in its benefits. And that was just something we struggled with, how to get people to exercise. And so then when we came across the science of REHIT, of reduced exertion, high intensity interval training, it basically clicked, and we sprung into action immediately. And yeah, this started in 2012. It's obviously a long path, a long journey, but we were primed for that. So we were waiting for something like that. And then we found it and thought, yes, this is it. And we have to pursue that and try to make it a reality.
Beautiful. And so let's talk a little bit about REHIT. People understand high intensity interval training, or some people do. That's when you basically work in really high intensity and allow for periods of rest. Can you explain maybe kind of the mechanisms of what that does for our mitochondria and for our health, and maybe what might be some of the differences for reduced exertion, high intensity training?
Sure. So REHIT is a new and improved version of HIT. So most people will be familiar with high intensity interval training. Has been around for a long time. It is very effective. It's very effective at improving your cardio fitness, your VO2 max, your ability to burn oxygen. And so that there's no question around that. The only thing is, high intensity interval training, while short and shorter than long steady state cardio, is still relatively long. And it is also, the rate of perceived exertion is high. So if you do 4-minute intervals at the maximum power, the maximum intensity you can do, it takes you about half an hour with the low intensity intervals, and it is really brutal. So that's a very hard workout. It takes you half an hour. You sweat. It takes a significant effort. REHIT is HIT taken to the next level. So it's taken the high intensity intervals, performed at really your maximum intensity, but in the shortest amount of time that will still give you the benefits. And didn't come across overnight. Like there's also a long journey that started with Wingate sprints back in the 70s or so, and some very distinguished researchers and scientists who developed this concept and who titrated it to what is essentially the minimum effective dose of sprint training that will trigger an adaptation pathway, that will trigger the training stimulus. And they found it. And it is 2 20-second sprints. And there's good reasons why it is that. And then what we did, we basically packaged it into a very simple and very easy solution for consumers. So we translated it out of the lab into the real world. And that's kind of where it comes from in terms of how it works and why it's so effective. For this very brief moment, for those 2 20 seconds, we're basically simulating, or you are simulating, an emergency situation, a situation where you have to like fight for your life or run for your life. And the energy demand in your legs goes up by around a factor of 100 compared to rest. So you create a very, very severe spike in energy demand, a very severe disruption of homeostasis, of your balanced state. And your body responds to that. So it sees that spike in energy demand and it gets ready for a fight or flight situation. It prepares you. Doesn't know how long this will last. It just knows, whoa, energy demand has shot up. And the legs, the muscles in your legs are not able to use your aerobic energy system. Is much too slow. It has to tap into fastest acting energy system. So there's first phosphocreatine, super fast, but lasts only for 10 seconds. And then the next layer is glycogen. Glycogen is a storage form of sugar stored directly in the muscles. And to prepare you for that emergency, your body mobilizes a lot of glycogen, about 25 to 30% of the glycogen stored in your legs. Now, in terms of energy, that's a phenomenal amount. It could sustain a much longer sprint effort. And you actually burn through only a small fraction of that. But it doesn't really matter because the stimulus, the training stimulus, is achieved by mobilizing the glycogen. Because bound to the glycogen are certain molecules, AMP, that get mobilized and activated with the glycogen and then activated into AMPK, which then triggers another signaling molecule, PGC1 alpha, that is your body's master regulator for mitochondrial biogenesis. So you release and activate a signaling molecule that sends a very strong signal to your body that it has to develop more and larger mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of your cell, and thereby improve your ability to burn, to metabolize oxygen. And that is all achieved through these very short sprints and just by by mobilizing the glycogen. And that is, in some ways, you could call it a hack because you shortcut dramatically versus other exercises how you get to that endpoint.
Yeah, this is something that's pretty amazing. And you could actually start to see why nature created this mechanism for us to live. If we actually look out in nature, we see animals that get preyed on, like deer, antelope, etc., bunny, rabbits, rodents. They're looking for predators. And all of a sudden, what happens is a predator would come and boom, they would have to take off. But what we would also see, and which I love the fact that you've built this into your protocol, is they go from a place of immediate fight or flight. And then once the threat is gone, they immediately go back to their stress state. Now, the problem with where most people are around the world is they're in a constant stress state probably most of the time. But going back to the threat issue is if you know that you need the capacity to run away from a predator, your body needs to develop those mechanisms so that you actually have that capacity to be able to use the oxygen to really get out there. Otherwise, you're going to be that predator's lunch if you don't develop that, which is why this is something that has allowed all these great health benefits and physiological benefits by doing something like this. Yes?
Yes, exactly that. So it is in these sprints, and I don't want to scare people, but it is really one of the most severe disruptions of what's called homeostasis, your balanced state. It's one of the few, well, actually, I think one of the only moments where your ATP, like your body is exceptional at regulating ATP levels. It's one of the few instances where ATP levels drop significantly. So it is just a very powerful stimulus. And your body wants to survive. Your body doesn't want to be anybody's lunch. And therefore will do whatever it takes to get fitter and stronger. Now, the other thing I should say is it is very short. So 2 20-second sprints. Once you've done it, this feels like a real workout. Yeah. So your heart rate will shoot up.
Yeah.
You're breathing heavily. Once you've done it, you will understand why this is effective. But because the sprints are so short, it is entirely doable. And we have now over 30,000 riders, and we see that it's doable and that you can build a habit and stick to this. And I think it's doable, because it's so short. So there is a little bit no pain, no gain. But by the time the pain kicks in, you're almost done. So the first 10 seconds are all right, then second 10 to 15 gets harder, last 5 seconds are hard. It's only going to be another then 3, 2, 1, and done. Yeah. And so that makes it fairly easy to do. Other way around. So I do a lot of exercise. I do all sorts of things. But for example, when I go on a Sunday for a 5K run or for a 3-mile run, if I want a semi-decent time and a good one, I have to basically fight with myself every single step. So I have to motivate and drive myself every single step. Whereas with REHIT, with 2 20-second sprints, the psychological effort of pushing myself, I find at least much smaller because it is just so short.
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for ThriveStateStarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You can find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at ThriveStateStarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
Yeah, no, I find it, your team sent me a bike a couple weeks ago, and jumping on it, I found a couple of things that was I found a very great delight as a couple of things. Because what I used to do is I would actually go sprinting for that. And there was a few things that happened with this. One, I would have to drive somewhere. I live in Los Angeles, in a busy city. I would have to drive somewhere where I actually had a long field I could go sprint in. So it would take some time for me to be able to get there. And the other thing was, a couple months ago, I did that. And I tore my adductor muscle a little bit by the intense sprinting. And so when I was on the Carol bike, not only was it super convenient because it was just my house, I didn't need a big field to do, but I just find, as I'm thinking about my parents, as I'm thinking about people maybe with arthritis and some of the pains, that it is much more tolerable and safer to use, less prone to injury than somebody going out and doing a full sprint.
That's absolutely right. And so a stationary bike is about the safest type of exercise you can do. And all the original research that we're building on was done on stationary bikes, like very specific scientific equipment, but nevertheless a stationary bike. And this is actually maybe important to understand why we've built the Carol bike. Once we saw this BBC science program and fell in love with REHIT and the science of REHIT, I actually went the very next day to a fitness equipment store and bought myself a exercise bike. And I'm an engineer. I paid close attention as to how they've described the exercise and what I might need for it. And I got myself an exercise bike and tried to perform it on that. And sadly, the experience was just not as they had described on the show. So they had described it as obviously very short, very efficient, but also relatively easy to do. And one benefit they promoted quite a lot was that you don't even sweat. Now, we're a little bit more careful. Like 9 out of 10 people probably don't sweat because it's so short. 1 in 10 does sweat. So we don't publish that too much, but with that claim. But for me, it was just nothing like that. It was really difficult to perform, sweated loads, and it was just not a good experience. And so we contacted the scientists and asked, what are we doing wrong? And the very first thing they told us was, you need a special bike. And they invited us to their lab where they showed us their equipment. And that was research equipment that's about something like $7,000 to $15,000, depending on which version, that gets operated by a second person. So you do the workout and you have a lab technician controlling the bike and coaching you through the workout. And when I did that, it was in fact a good experience, but it's of course completely impractical for a mass market application. And that's what led us to think, okay, can we actually build something that just automates and optimizes the workout and makes it as easy as possible for a normal consumer? And so we've built a bike that is fully automated, doesn't have any buttons, and makes it very easy to really, in those 2 20-second sprints, hit your maximum power, your maximum intensity. And the secret to that is that you want to accelerate at a low speed, at a low resistance to a very high pedal speed, very high pedal cadence, so that you're a bit like you're building up momentum before cycling up a hill. And then your optimal resistance has to be applied at the optimal time instantly. And that leads you to really get that max power and max intensity and get an optimal workout. And so that's what CaroBike does, and what it does very safely. And because the workouts are fully personalized and continuously get personalized through our AI algorithms, it's really suitable for any age and fitness levels. So I do it. My 16-year-old son, who's very athletic, can do it. And my 81-year-old mother, who's not that athletic anymore, she can do it 3 times a week. And then she always texts me her scores, and it's very proud. So it's wonderful to see. So we've got something that makes it just very easy for any age and fitness level, and makes it also very safe. Of course, like sprinting is great. If you can sprint, if your joints do it, if you don't feel awkward about yourself, it's a great workout. It's a shame, but normally, I think I've heard a statistic, I don't know whether it's a statistic, but that people over 30 just don't sprint. That there's many people from the age of 30 that will never sprint again in their life, and just deprive themselves of this wonderful workout and this wonderful stimulus.
Yeah. No, I really want to reiterate the fact of safety too, because there are some people that may say, oh, can I just go to any regular old bike, turn up the resistance and go hard in that resistance? But as you were saying, to be able to get the max resistance, if you don't build up to it, you can really do a lot of injury, which is something that I found as I was building up the resistance on the Carol bike. It was very intuitive that I felt like it was just slowly building up, and that I could really push without like over leveraging a muscle to tear in any second. Yeah.
That's right. And we really put a lot of thought into how can we make this as safe and as simple as possible. We want people to have an optimal workout in minimum time, and therefore it has to be safe and simple. And obviously I believe that we've achieved that, and it appears that our customers agree with that.
No, it's really exciting. And what I find really exciting is just the large amount of science around REHIT now. Seeing papers really talking about what you talked about is the activation of that PGC1 pathway. And what that does, and for anyone who's not aware, is it's really creates mitochondrial biogenesis. It actually not only gets rid of bad mitochondria, because your body basically needs these power plants to be at its optimum capacity to save you from the threat in the future. And so it really forces your body to become efficient with the mitochondria that you have. So create new mitochondria that's healthy, get rid of the ones that are not very healthy. And I don't know if you've seen in the literature, but I've also thought I read something about it increasing NAD production, and which we do know that NAD is really a molecule that activates sirtuins, which is linked to longevity.
So no, that's a new one. So I know that the list of benefits is very large. So mitochondrial biogenesis, as you've said, and as we've discussed earlier, the trigger. There's other things that happen about cardiac peak flow. So your stroke volume increases, your blood plasma volume increases, your blood vessel, your muscle capillarization increases. So there's with these short sprints, you trigger a really systemic response. No, I'll have to read up on that. I'm very curious. It never ceases to amaze me what happens. So we had some other new research lately, is not yet published, about IL-6 signaling molecules that were stimulated and increased by REHIT to the same level as much harder workouts. So the research is developing, and that's a beautiful thing. We're working with the leading researchers in that field. We're now doing research with Carol Bike. That's wonderful. And one thing we're able to do, because the bikes are all connected, is as the research evolves, also make your bike smarter. If the science evolves, we can evolve the workouts and give the best of the current knowledge and research to our customers.
One of the things I was so excited about, and so many people, at least that follow me in the longevity space, they understand the value of VO2 max. And what we do know, certainly from the papers released from the Veteran Affairs Office, is those people really in the upper quartile of VO2 max, compare it to the bottom quartile, really notice like a 5x difference in all-cause mortality. So this is a measure. If you want to live longer, you definitely want to improve. And I don't know if I've heard or read this from doing the research on the Carol Bike, but you've seen improvements in VO2 max by as high as 12% in a very short period of time. Yeah.
So that's right. So the evidence builds up, and there's a study after study that shows broadly the same results, that in only 8 weeks with minimal time requirements, so 3 times a week, 5 to 10 minutes. So you're talking like 20 to 30 minutes per week, you will see an improvement in VO2 max on average of 12% in only 8 weeks. It doesn't stop there. Some of the longer studies have shown then in 20 weeks up to 20% on average. And we see in our data of our users, of our riders, that continues further. Personally, I've improved my VO2 max by around 50%, over 50% in the first year I've
Amazing.
really done REHIT. Yes, no, literally life-changing. So it's a very profound impact, very noticeable impact. So you can definitely feel that. There's not something you're second guessing, and the bike gives you a rich basket of metrics so you can track your progress. But really you just have to, you feel it. So it's a nice to have. You would just feel it if you didn't have it. But we understand most people actually quite like the quantification and gamification. And yes, in terms of what you've said there around the importance of VO2 max, it is the most important predictor of life expectancy. And like one fact that I found so shocking, and also should put into perspective why we exercise, yeah? Because most people exercise, I think, and I respect that, is fine. Me too, I want that too, for weight management. Yeah, I should lose some weight, I should do some exercise. But if you look at avoidable deaths or the reduction in mortality risk, low cardiorespiratory fitness leads to more avoidable deaths than obesity, smoking, and diabetes combined. So it is really, VO2 max is not just the most important or predictor, but by some distance the most important predictor of life expectancy. And this is the beauty of it. One, that you can really do a lot to improve. So it's very influenceable. It's very much in your control. And actually a very positive message that if you want to do something for your health span, your lifespan, this is something you can do. And for relatively little time and relatively reasonable resources and effort that you have to invest.
This is really exciting news. The question, and I know some people might be thinking, wow, I can get away with a 5-minute exercise a couple times a week. You do have some people that listen to the show that are a bit high achievers. And the question, is this something that could be done too much, that potentially might be stressing out the body too much? Is this something that if somebody wanted to do multiple times a day or more than a couple times a week, that it's also safe? Or how would you approach that?
Yeah. First, in terms of what our recommendation is, to do this REHIT workout with 2 20-second sprints 3 times a week. And it depends a little bit on what your goals are. If your goals are just around VO2 max and cardiorespiratory fitness, the latest research suggests that 2 times a week is even enough. If metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, prevention of type 2 diabetes is important for you, 3 times or maybe every other day is better, because that effect is more an acute effect. Cardiorespiratory fitness is more a chronic effect. So 2 to 3 times per week. I do it very religiously every other day, because I think habit is so important and routine is important, and you need to have just something to stick to. If you want to do it more, there's actually no problem. You can, we wouldn't recommend doing it twice a day, but if you want to do it every day, there's no downside, because the level of exertion is so low, and we've consulted there with our academic partner. There wouldn't be a concern that you're overtraining because of that. However, what I would say is, so this is one very highly efficient workout. The bike has many other workouts as well. So basically, we include things that are effective, that are hopefully short, and that have good scientific evidence. So that's our inclusion criteria. It's also compatible with many third-party apps, and then you get even more variety. So you can do lots of things on it. If you wanted to do more, if you are a high achiever and wanted to do more, there is other things that you can do. So for example, if you have a lot more time, zone 2 training in addition is a good thing. We find zone 2 training, there's a kind of almost a hype around it. And I think sometimes the priority is a bit topsy-turvy, or is just a bit upside down, because people don't exercise because they don't have time. That's every scientific survey shows that. So therefore, the first thing you need to get in is the biggest return on the minimum amount of time to have you covered. If you've got that, yes, like longer zone 2 sessions with 60 to 90 minutes to improve aerobic efficiency and, for example, your capacity to oxidize fat is a good thing. Yes, if you look at the top athletes, they all have a mix of low intensity work and high intensity work. So that's a good thing to add. However, I should say, before I spent a lot of time on zone 2 training, and then if you do that twice a week, you need 3 hours, I would definitely also do other things first. I think the first thing would be for me, REHIT to get the cardio fitness right. The next thing I would layer in, or that I do layer in, is just weight training and resistance training, because you also need strength and muscle mass. And that's also critical, both for how you feel and how well you live. Yes, then the zone 2 training, some mobility exercises. So you build it up. And if you're high achieving, you'll end up with more than 20 minutes per week. But the biggest bang for your buck is that first investment into REHIT.
That's when I got the bike, the second time I was on that bike, I was like, wow, it's just so easy. The only thing that upsets me is I do a lot of traveling, and I'm right now in Detroit, and I don't have a bike that's around me to be able to do easily, and it's raining outside right now, so it's difficult to do that sprint. But really excited about this technology that with a very short period of time can just get you so much. So my question to you next is, what is the future for Carol Bike, and where do you see it going next?
Yeah, the Carol Bike, with the current version, brought out 2 years ago, and it's very refined. We have still frequent software updates as the science evolves, the bike evolves. In terms of where we go next, I'd love to develop, and we're thinking about that, obviously, a strength training solution along the same lines to basically get maximum strength benefits also in minimum time with AI support that tailors a really short workout to you. But I can't say too much about that's early days, but that's, I think, would be the logical progression.
Wow, super excited about this. Now, before I ask you my very last question, how do people find out more about you and the Carol Bike and the exciting things that are coming around the corner?
Yeah, sure. You can follow us on the socials at the Carol Bike. That's on all platforms the same. Our website, carolbike.com, has a ton of resources, ton of information. If you wanted to try it and experience it yourself, so we are in some of the leading kind of performance studios, biohacking facilities, but we don't have showrooms. We don't work with showrooms. Instead, what we do is we offer really an industry-leading, what we call risk-free trial. So if you can purchase a bike directly from our web store, and you have 100 days to just train with it, work out with it. And that's plenty of time to see whether you like it, whether you can build a sustainable routine around it, and whether you see the benefits, whether you see and feel the benefits. If for any reason it's not for you, you just call us and we take it back and you get a full refund. And that's our commitment to you, that that we are really sure that this is a good purchase for you. And that's also at carolbike.com.
That's amazing. And I believe your team is creating a code for the listeners here. So I think the code is Thrive State, but make sure you look for it in the show notes wherever you're listening to this podcast and receive a discount just for listening to the show. It's a really neat experience. I think when you hop on it the first couple of times, you would just be amazed at how short workouts are and how fun it is. Thank you so much for that gift. My last question to you is, you being the CEO of this company, you're seeing so much in the longevity space, but for you personally, what has been your best medicine?
I think it was exercise, really. Yes. I do feel that exercise and physical wellness helps all around. It helps with your mental health, with sleep. And it's also one that I feel I'm really good at. So it's something I can stick to. I do either strength training or REHIT first thing in the morning before I start my day. And it's the first win already in the bag. It's something I'm really good at. I understand that sleep is important. I'm not that good at it. I'm still working on that. Yeah, no, exercise is probably the best medicine.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's a couple of things I want to just add to that is, one, exercise is something where sometimes it's hard to work on the limiting beliefs or the subconscious programming on your mind. But if you get your body to move around, you're going to shift your energy. So exercise is one of these habits that I propose people start with first, but it's also one of the harder things to do when you are doing a routine that just requires some work. I think having that Carol Bike is going to be a big game changer, because you could find that just with a very short amount of time and effort, you can get some big results. And I always say, to start changing habits, really start small and start to build on it. I think you've created something that will really catalyze people to basically make some large strides in their fitness very early. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Ulrich, you have won the 5 to Thrive. I can't wait to have a meal on you. Thank you today for sharing your wisdom and for putting all this work together in getting out a product that is going to, I think, revolutionize the way we all exercise and ultimately how we live our life and live full, happy, full functioning lives as well.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential, so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well, you can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.